There is a sound playing in the room you are sitting in right now. You cannot hear it. It sits at around 56 Hz, just below the threshold of conscious perception, generated by the electrical infrastructure of the modern world. Power lines. Transformers. The grid running through the walls of this building. It has been inside every room you have ever slept in, and your brain has been absorbing it every single night since the day you were born. You think you know what quiet is. You've been in a library. You've sat outside early in the morning before the neighborhood woke up. You've had a moment, maybe, where everything felt still. That was not silence. That was just a lower volume of noise. The quietest place on Earth is a room at Orfield Laboratories in Minnesota. An anechoic chamber. A room engineered to absorb 99.99% of all sound. No one has ever stayed inside it longer than 45 minutes without asking to leave. People report hearing their own heartbeat. The sound of blood moving through their skull becomes unbearable. Their joints crack like old timber. The absence of sound is so total that the human nervous system begins generating its own noise just to fill it. We are so unequipped for silence that the complete absence of it has become physically distressing. But for 99% of human history, silence wasn't a laboratory experiment. It was just the night. And something happened to the human mind inside that silence, something that took millions of years to develop, that we have permanently switched off. And we did it so recently that the last people who experienced it are barely a generation removed from us. To understand what was lost, you have to understand what silence actually was. Before electrification, the world after dark was not quiet in the way we romanticize it. There were insects, wind, the sounds of animals and weather and fire. But underneath all of it was something that does not exist anywhere in the modern world. An absence of continuous, artificial tone. No hum. No flicker. No electrical field pressing against the air. In 1905, fewer than 3% of rural homes in the United States had electricity. By 1935, that number had climbed to 90%. In the space of a single generation, roughly 30 years, the acoustic texture of the night was permanently altered across an entire civilization. The people born just before that shift described the night in words that feel strange to us now. Not peaceful. Not quiet. They called it inhabited. They called it alive. They called it full. They were not being poetic. They were describing a sensory reality that no human born after them has ever experienced. In 2015, acoustic ecologist Gordon Hempton published research that changed how scientists think about silence and the human nervous system. Hempton had spent decades traveling the world searching for places with no detectable artificial sound for more than 15 minutes at a time. He found fewer than a dozen. In his recordings of genuinely silent environments, he documented something unexpected. Human subjects exposed to true natural silence, not the engineered silence of an anechoic chamber, but the layered quiet of a world with no electrical infrastructure, showed measurable changes within minutes. Heart rate slowed. Cortisol levels dropped. The brain shifted into a state of alert but undemanding attention that neuroscientists associate with deep restoration. It was not relaxation. It was something older than relaxation. A state the nervous system slipped into automatically, as if it had been waiting for permission. Hempton called it the state of arrival. The moment when the brain stops scanning for threat and simply exists inside the world around it. Modern humans almost never reach it, not because we don't want to, because the environment required to trigger it no longer exists in most of the world. The flicker is always there. The hum is always there. The electrical field pressing against the air is always there. To be there. But here is the part that changes everything. It is not just that we lost quiet. It is what the mind did inside that quiet that is gone. In 2013, researchers at the University of Oregon published a study on the neurological effects of silence on memory consolidation and creative processing. They found that periods of genuine silence, not meditation, not relaxation, not sleep, but conscious wakefulness in a truly quiet environment, triggered the brain's default mode network at levels significantly higher than any other state. The default mode network is what activates when you are not focused on any external task. It is the system responsible for imagination, self-reflection, the processing of unresolved emotional experience, and the construction of long-term identity. In simple terms, it is the part of your brain that makes you you, and it runs deepest in silence. Your ancestors spent every night inside that state, not by choice, not as a wellness practice, simply because the world went quiet and there was nothing else to do but think. They lay in the dark between waking and sleep and they processed their lives. Their memories consolidated. Their unresolved experiences found shape. Their sense of self was built and rebuilt every night in the silence that surrounded them. We replaced that silence with screens, and then we named the resulting condition, the restlessness, the inability to sit still, the feeling that something important is perpetually missing. We named it anxiety. We named it insomnia. We gave it clinical categories and we treated it like a malfunction. But what if it is not a malfunction? What if the restlessness you feel at 2 a.m., the inability to switch off, the sense that something underneath the surface of your life is unresolved, what if that is simply your default mode network still trying to do the job it was built to do? Still looking for the silence that used to be there, still waiting for a world that is gone. To be there, still waiting for a world that is gone. The last generation that knew silence did not know they were the last. They did not know that the hum coming from the new electrical lines going up at the edge of town would still be inside the walls of every building their grandchildren ever slept in. They did not know that the particular quality of darkness and quiet they had lived inside every night of their lives was a thing that could be taken away and never returned. They just went to sleep. And something that had existed in the human mind for 300,000 years quietly went with them. Tonight, when you cannot sleep, when the room feels restless and your thoughts won't settle, that is not your mind failing. That is your mind remembering something it has never actually known, and reaching for it anyway.